All right, I'm just going to share my screen. So as we always do, an opportunity to show our appreciation for each other and give thanks to our teachers. I will just start with our intention setting. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangu Langyete Krim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sundai Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So as always, we give thanks to our teachers and to all of you for joining us who are divine beings filled with compassion and wanting to revolutionize and transform ourselves and hopefully impart that and share with others and help others along their journey. So as we always mention, our culture is bringing full presence to what we're doing, respect for all those that have come from different parts of the world and different backgrounds, and the determination to do the work that is being asked of us. And I always like to remind ourselves of two things we should always try to remember as best possible: the good others have done for us to keep us in the space of gratitude, and always trying to keep in mind the bad we may have done for others to always keep us in a mindset of wanting to improve and be better. And then the two things we should always try as best to let go of are the bad others have done for us, or at least the feelings attached to it, and the good we have also done for others. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. This is always one of the highlights of my week. And I just wanted to just check in and start off just from last week and just hear from you guys where you ended off in the discussion. If someone wanted to just at least just touch upon, I know we were in the importance of alliance section, and I'm pretty sure Ed told me where we left off. I mean, it's such a powerful section. I'd love to read the whole thing, but I just wanted to see, did anyone have any thoughts or reflections from ending from last week? So we're on, in the new book, where we pretty much started the section important of alliances. It's at the bottom of 64. And we pretty much read through into the page 65. But again, there was so many loaded parts in this section here that there's a lot to go through. And we started talking about delegation and the importance of delegation as leaders. So did anyone have any thoughts or reflections from last week? Anybody? All right. So then just to, does everyone know, everyone's good and knows where we are in the section? Okay. So what we're going to do then.
I did miss last week, so
No
sorry.
problem.
I don't have anything
that's okay. So we had a really good discussion on delegation, and one of the things that I just remember clearly that came up is what we're doing in our, like, what we're doing that gets in our own way. I remember that distinctly from our discussion last week, and what we're trying to do, or sorry, what we're trying to do to get out of our own way. And I just remember distinctly Avni bringing up the point of sometimes being silent and just relying on silence as a way of sometimes not, to get out of our own way. And I was quoting 10.38 in Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna was saying that he is in fact silence. And so I thought that was a really powerful point for us, for all of us to meditate on. I'm just reflecting on just the, some of the points that I had noted down from last week. And that saying from Ambika, she brought it up, if we want to go fast, we go alone. If we want to go far, we go together. And that very much is something that I'm always trying to remind ourselves, because it's sometimes so easy to just sometimes take things on ourselves that we want to push things to go faster, but in the long run, many times it ends up being unsustainable. And we don't always get the best result because there are usually team members that can do something at a, to a higher level and a better quality. So Ed was bringing up this point last week that the root cause of all suffering is ignorance, and that's from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we were talking about the importance of just being honest as leaders. And so then we went through this hierarchy of self-awareness that, first, when there is self-awareness, it leads to a certain way of being, and that leads then to a certain way of doing. And that doing then also, our daily actions also then lead to what we speak and what we say. And then finally, we moved into at least the section that I remember, how to get out of my own way. And I was reflecting that on the point of just bouncing my ideas and thoughts and decisions off others and looking for patterns and similarities that come from independent people, but the same message definitely generally comes through. Did anyone else have any reflections or just comments they wanted to add from last week? Because then we'll move into reading. All right, so we'll just jump right in. If we want to, we'll start basically at the bottom of 65. So there is a section called delegation is important, not only because it relieves the leaders of their burdens. And I was wondering if someone wanted to read.
Sure, I can read, Rickon.
Please.
Delegation is important not only because it relieves the leaders of their burdens, but also because an organization thrives when all of its members feel that they have a defined and important role to play in it. If leaders make plans without the help of participants, he will not get the maximum results, even if the leader's ideas are good. When people feel they are an important part of the project's development, they will be more willing to make sacrifice on the project's behalf. Delegation allows leaders to encourage such participation. Continue.
You can keep going.
Okay. Delegation can be done according to linear principles or from a matrix. In linear management, leaders delegate tasks through a hierarchy. One person will give an instruction to someone under him, who will then give an instruction to someone under him. And each person in line is responsible to the person directly above him. Matrix management is different. One person delegates tasks to others based on their qualification to get the job done. When delegating tasks, it is important to ensure that the person taking on the work has the ability and the propensity to do it successfully. People have different propensities and talents. When we can give someone a task in accordance with their natural abilities, they are more likely to accomplish it properly. People who are naturally engaged according to their propensities tend to have a greater sense of well-being. Most people are dissatisfied with their work. They work more out of duty or out of a desire for money than out of heartfelt commitment. The American government initiated a study many years ago to find out why the Japanese excelled in particularly all areas of management and production, even though the United States had more institutions for the development of business. They discovered that facility, knowledge, etc., are responsible for only 15 to 20% of management success. What had the most effect was the way a manager interacted with his employees. Managers who include and enthuse their employees are able to build better team spirit and thus be more effective in their projects. Japanese culture reinforces qualities such as integrity, commitment, team spirit, selflessness. In martial arts, this is called the Bushido principle, which literally means valuing honor above life. It includes making vows, self-dedication, and denying one's personal interests to serve the whole. If leaders do not utilize their manpower properly, their employees will feel underused or neglected. This causes isolation and resentment. People who feel they have nothing to offer feel unappreciated, and this affects their synergy with the team. With some members of the team, when some members of the team are resentful, apathy develops. A good leader empowers people and does not leave them unmotivated. When people are apathetic, they begin to expect the leader to carry out all the project's plans. They don't feel needed and they don't perform. This in turn puts more pressure on the leader. If people are resentful enough, they may even try to sabotage the leader's effort. They become eager to see the leaders fail. Despite the value inherent in making employees team members, why do some leaders refuse to delegate responsibility? Often it is because they are too attached to profit and distinction. They are afraid to share the credit for the project's success. Other times, they may think that no one can do the job as they think it should be done, as well as they themselves can do it. But it is rare to find people who are competent in every area. Those who think they are such rare souls are usually mistaken. Part of good management means knowing to whom one can turn to get particular tasks performed with quality. If we are clear about our own weaknesses, we can then get help where we need it. Continue, Regan.
We can just stop there.
Okay.
The point that I wanted to kind of reflect upon here and just hear from everyone else is what mistakes us as individuals have made in our delegation. And I wanted to kind of hear from everyone so that we could learn. Does anyone want to start?
Yeah, okay, I have.
Please, Stacy.
I think lack of clarity is a big one because, especially when I remember, the early days of being a supervisor, right? I mean, already feeling not as confident, to know what that even meant, right? Because it's a big switch to go from being an individual contributor to a supervisor. And then, of course, then there's another switch, right? When you're managing supervisors and a whole team. And so I think that when you're already feeling like, can this other person do the job? Am I going to end up left holding the bag, right? I mean, you're not sure of all that. And then you don't know how to articulate what is actually needed or to understand what other people's skills really are. It becomes so difficult, right, to actually get the result. And then what can happen is it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because if you weren't clear, you didn't know what the people were good at, and then things went awry, it's like then it becomes this spiral of micromanaging your team, right? Because you feel like, well, it didn't work, right? So now I'm just going to hold on. I'm going to attach onto, to keep this attachment, right, onto all the different things that need to be done. And then it becomes a very restricting environment and one that's not fun for your team to be a part of because they always feel like they're on edge, that you're not, they don't maybe know what's the right thing to do, or they're doing something wrong and things like that. And so I feel that, only with mentorship can that end up, improving, right, in any degree, more rapidly, right? I guess that's some of what I'm reflecting on as I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, it's a really great point on clarity, not only in other people's strengths and skills, but sometimes even in our own role.
Yeah,
clarity
for
just
sure.
as a general. And I think a lot of times we move into positions and many times we're not kind of, shown every aspect of the job, what it entails. Sometimes all the subtle things that are involved that usually we just have to figure out by experience. So yeah, this point on clarity is just really important. And sometimes even self-reflection won't do it because we need to be imparted wisdom from people who've traversed or crossed the path. So that point on mentorship is just tremendous. Anybody else have any thoughts on, oh, Avni wanted to share? And I think I saw Christina's hand too. Christina, did you want to go first?
I was also. So I would say probably one of the classicers is just when it's very fast solutions, then you do it yourself because you know you do it the fastest and you know the latest information. What leads probably to another, it's the timely sharing of this information that you feel comfortable enough that your team members are up to date and you don't need to jump up to make the best or something like this. So probably that's the one which I would call a classics, especially when the time pressure comes up. Yeah.
I think we might have lost Rick.
Yeah, I think so too. Wait.
You want to?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened. But Avni, do you want to go?
Yeah, so the biggest mistake I probably make as a leader is that being so attached. So it says here they are afraid to share the credit of the project's success. But for me, it's not only that. Probably it's being attached to the fact that my definition of what success means. So not basically recognizing that could be other outcomes and they're also valid successes. So that's where I falter. Basically, I'm so attached to my definition of what the outcome should be. So yeah, that's where I find it very difficult to maybe delegate so easily. And then the second thing is that I'm so probably, I mean, I do delegate, but I'm so saying what Christina said is that I just get on with it and I get on, I'm so much in my lane, but then only when it's the last minute, when I really can't do it, then I delegate. And another person can get offended to say, well, you didn't need me before, why do you need me now? So those are the two areas. So yeah, that's my thought. Those are my reflections.
And Avni, I guess, have things in this area, do you feel like you've made big transitions in both these areas?
Yeah, I have. Yes, I have. But I do take like 5 steps back to go 10 steps forward. So, but I'm making progression. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Those are also just great points about just being attached to the result. And sometimes, I mean, I've been in that situation too before, Avni, where we can sometimes even limit the result because it's still based on our conception of success. So I can really identify with that one.
And
Someone else had their hand up?
The main learning or going forward, probably I would call for myself, when you start noticing that and you say, okay, oh, I did it again. So how could I like elevate in the next one? So that's probably the biggest part. You start recognizing the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if it doesn't go back to some clarity, because like Avni, to your point, like you have this really strong thought on what the outcome should be, but I wonder if other people know what that looks like to you.
Yeah, I do communicate it, but there can be, I mean, everyone has their own programming and what they've experienced in life. And I think that this goes in terms of there's 2 managers on the same level. So let me just be very, very clear. I mean, I'm in terms of my work, I'm a life coach. So I'm a one-man band in terms of just in my life coaching. Of course, I have a whole team underneath me helping me to be a life coach. This I'm actually relating to my, can you hear me? I'm relating to my home life. So that's in terms of delegation of being two leaders of two wonderful children. So that's very, very clear. And of course, the other leader is my husband. So yeah.
Great points. Thanks, Avni. It's I'd say the dynamic is different, even though the principles may overlap between work and home. Gabrielle, did you want to share something?
Yes, I'm just trying to manage whilst driving, which is actually not allowed, sorry. But I really want to participate, and I do, and I'm very happy about it. It came to my mind that to give the work away to others or to trust others enough, I think it's the base for that is to trust ourselves enough. And I am not sure on the level of subconscious I am able to trust myself enough. And that doesn't, and this is a very deep one, because to know thyself, I think we are sometimes lying to ourselves. We are not showing us the whole truth of our personality somehow, because we are afraid of. And when we are not showing ourselves the whole truth about ourselves, we are lying to ourselves. So we are not trusting ourselves enough. And how can we trust another person if we cannot trust ourselves enough? I know it's a very deep one, but I thought I have to say it. So people either just put it away or go in a contemplation about it. I just got the impression, feeling, let's say, the feeling I have to say it. Yeah, even I'm driving. So, but I'm driving slowly. I'm in the forest. Okay, this is what I just want to put in this, that I think it's not so easy to give away responsibility when we are inside, or I'm talking about myself, when I'm inside afraid, then I can handle it easier. When I'm afraid things can go wrong, it's easier for me when things go wrong and I can blame myself. But when I'm giving the responsibility to somebody else, it probably has to do something. Yeah, I guess you know what I mean. I can talk about this more and more and more, but I'm sure all in the group know a sense of what I mean about it. And yeah, I just want to put this on the table, because I know that in my personal life, I can only work on things if I'm ready to face them, because I was because I was a lot afraid in my life of many things. I had so much fear in my life, and probably still have in some parts. Sometimes not, but sometimes the fear is there. And when I face fear, it's better to overcome and to trust other people. Yeah. Okay. Maybe somebody
Thank you,
can
Gabrielle.
add something to this.
I was just going to reflect. To me, it goes even back to Stacy's point about clarity, and I guess clarity can be seen at multiple levels. And clarity just, when you talk about trusting ourselves, I also see it as just like a deeper layer of clarity within ourselves, confidence in ourselves, our own identity, our purpose, our values, and having clarity on those things also leads to determining the trust within ourselves. So yeah, I appreciate that, as at least I see it as a different layer of clarity, but going back to that same point of clarity. Thank you so much for that. Did anyone want to reflect on that point specifically? Feel free to unmic. Mohit, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, thank you. There's a couple of points I wanted to make. So first I'll get to the smaller point because I think the other one might open up a little discussion period. But I find, so answering the question of what can go wrong with when you delegate, or what we have to be careful in the process of delegation, is I found it over and over again. Delegation doesn't mean hands off. Delegation requires management. So just because we pick somebody to do something, you still have to incorporate some metrics that you can manage them by, thereby answering Avni's point earlier to make sure it gets done to the success level that you expect. Mm-hmm. So to me, success is defined by, whatever metrics we set to it, right? And in order for that to happen, you have to create metrics to be able to have that. So you can delegate as much as you want, and actually, in order to grow an organization. So if you want to double, triple, quadruple in size, then you have to get great at delegation, because you can't grow without incorporating more people, which leads me to my second point. So this is, I'm totally butchering this. So if people have ever heard this quote before, don't blame this, but it's something to the degree of a great leader is not judged by how many disciples or followers they have, but rather by the number of masters they have, right? So something like that, right? Masters they create, or leaders that they create, right? So our goal as delegation, when we delegate, so you're delegating the project itself, but then you also have to think, what are we trying to accomplish long term? And so if your goal is to also make leaders, that's truly what you're going to be judged by, and actually that's the only way you're going to grow. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mohit. I was just reflecting on this point that you were making, this point about being hands off. And I was going to reflect that one of my challenges that I'm trying to work on actively is, this point that B.T. Swami makes, is that when we delegate work,
your connection's a bit weak. We can't hear you so clearly. Your connection's, the sound keeps cutting out. Yeah, we can't hear what you're saying. I'm not sure. Maybe is it something could you maybe
our task, and
so,
oftentimes, and
Rick, we missed
and that
point
point
you were saying. Could you repeat your point, because we missed most of what you said?
Is that better? We can move on. That's okay. Someone else can.
We can hear, because we can hear you now.
Hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. So I was just saying that this point of just having hands off when you've delegated a task, and something that always takes work on my part is just this relentless accountability of making sure you're following through on things needing to get done. It's something that just takes a lot of consistency, a lot of hard work, and just awareness that sometimes can fall away when things pile up and get busy. Yeah. So that for me is like one of the mistakes that I have made, and still sometimes will drop the ball on, is this accountability, and sometimes thinking that when we've delegated, the task is off our shoulders.
That's a great point.
Mohit, did your hand still up?
I had a quick sub point, just to add to the conversation, what Mohit said, which is that, tying on to what Gabrielle and Agni said as well, is when you really truly trust yourself and you, let's just say, your own skill sets, when you delegate, in the proper manner, the mood is, as Mohit said, is to elevate everybody else and to teach and, obviously to create, other leaders in your group. And so I guess my point is that when you know yourself and your abilities, instead of let's just say hogging the limelight and relying on your own skill sets, to get the job done, when you delegate effectively, I found is that you're willing to give those skill sets, impart those skill sets to your team members. And when they see that, when they admire something in you and they see that they're really ready to teach that to them and give that to them as part of the delegation process, they really appreciate that and they get involved and they, that's where I find that accountability, dependability, all of that really flourish. So I just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, that's a really, really powerful point, Rasa, about just, this willingness to teach and caring. I think it goes a long way. It goes a really, really long way in establishing trust and in the delegation process. Really powerful point. Thank you.
Yeah. Just a very quick point, just to if you don't mind, sorry, Ed and Rikin, to answer. Is it Mohit and what's and?
Rasa.
Rasa.
Rasa, thank you so much. I think it goes back to the reflection also of Ed last week. Ed, was it impact or meaning when you are able to communicate to the person how they contribute towards the team? What was it? Was it impact?
I think it's impact. Yeah, that's around contribution. Meaning is purpose.
Yeah, so exactly, that sort of had struck a point to me there with Rasa. What you said is that it's very important there to I totally agree what you mean, and I love it. I love the fact that, and I do that in terms of creating leaders, but it's created even more awareness. What I'm probably doing is that I see leaders, creating leaders, people similar to myself. And what I need to do, which is reflection, what Ed said, is then identify and communicate to the other people who I'm not probably aligned with, to understand their impact in the team and to communicate that so that they feel valued and excited to be part of the team. So yeah, no, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Avni. Ed, did you want to kick things off or kind of build on what's been shared?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I do want. So, are you okay for me to take it forward from here?
Please, go ahead.
Excellent. Okay, so first of all, it's great to see all of you. As always, and just really catching the last part of your conversation is always really exciting. Yes, so to the point that Avni shared, I know that last week we looked at a couple of things. We asked you to consider what is it that you need to start doing, stop doing, continue doing. And we asked you for an intuitive answer. So we talked about the two hemispheres in the brain, that one side is a more rational scientific, the other is a more artistic and intuitive. And what happens in modern societies, we tend to over-rotate in one direction, but actually what we see when we look at geniuses is that they often use both hemispheres together. And what that does is it creates a synergy where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That was one thing we did. The other thing we did last week is we looked at Project Aristotle, named after Aristotle, which was a project run by Google. And it was based on this idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, or can be greater. And we identified the 5 key areas, and Avni touched upon one of them, which makes for highly effective, high-performing teams. And then we asked you to do an analysis around that. Where are the teams strong? Where's there's an area of opportunity? Now, we want to do something very interesting in today's session. You've already had some conversation around delegation. We're going to do an exercise around delegation specifically. I just want to check actually. We didn't do did we do a delegation exercise last week? No, I didn't think so. Okay, because I had it planned, but we didn't have time. That's okay. So we'll do the delegation exercise today. And then there's also another activity, which I think could be very, very insightful for all of you. I'm going to share my screen. Let's just go straight to that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll set this up so it is like this. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, good. So the first one we're going to get into, linking with what was discussed by all of you with Rikin, is we want to start to put this into practice. I'm going to ask you to pick a particular task, okay? A particular task that you know would be good to delegate. So define the task first of all. In other words, the first part is exactly what is the task that needs to be done. Second, I think Mohit, you talked about this. You can give the task, but you can't give away the responsibility. So the second point is, how exactly do you intend to monitor that task? Is it direct monitoring? In other words, are you going to chase them? Are they going to come to you? Is it going to be in your one-to-one? Is it going to be in your team meeting? And what is the monitoring frequency? Is it you're going to check in once a week, once a month? So define how you will monitor the task. Number 3, if you delegate a task, and B.T. Swami talks about this, we also have to give people the resources to achieve that task effectively. So what resources are needed? I'm going to ask you to write down the answers for each of these, because I want us to practice conscious delegation. Not just saying, okay, I'm going to give someone something, but really thinking it through. We talked last week about clarity and how we talked about the 5 areas of trust. Oftentimes people fail in delegation because they give something and they're not clear. It's not clear. Okay, I'm giving this, I want you to do exactly this. Sometimes when I talk to leaders, I will talk to them about giving a clear vision of what good looks like. Because if I give a clear vision up front, then you know exactly what standard I'm looking for. If I don't, you may work incredibly hard. And then you come up with something, and after all the time and effort you've put in, I'm going to turn around and say to you, that's not what I'm looking for. And then you feel like, hold on, now I've wasted all my time. And then even the people can be disenfused. And it's all because I didn't define the task properly. It wasn't clear. So define the task, how you monitor, what resources are needed, and then and then when you've considered all of that, now bear in mind here, this is deliberate sequence. Oftentimes people start, I'm going to give this to this person. We're taking this in a completely different direction. I'm going to define what I'm doing, how I'm going to monitor it, what resources are needed. And when I know all of this, then the last thing I'll figure out is who I'm going to give it to and how I'm going to empower them. Now I'm going to ask you a question on this before we go on. Why have I put that last? The thing that many managers put first, I want to give this person, no, Jane's free, let me give her this. Why have I put the person last in that sequence? Yeah, Hiba, you don't have to put your hand up. Hiba, we'd just love to hear from you. Just feel free to unmute and share. It'd be great to hear from you. And good to see you.
Yeah. Hi, hello. Because you mentioned, about clarity, when we know what we want, and specifically, and we were specific about the task, and as well the resources and everything you mentioned, directly we know which person to give, because we know the people, we know the team, and we know that, for example, this person, this task will fit more for it. So this is it. But this is interesting, your question, let me think of, the sequence. It was very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hiba. And Jide, good to see you again. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think Hiba sort of touched on it already, because when we were reflecting on this topic of delegation earlier, I think the one area that was a challenge for me was always knowing who has what skill sets. So I think there was a line from the passage where you said, a task assigned to someone who has the ability or who has the propensity to do a good job with that task. Yeah. So maybe that comes full circle to your question on perhaps going through that sequence of questioning helps you identify and have a clear picture of who would best fit that task within the team.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Ricken and I sometimes we're working on different projects. And I know that, I'm always, we always discussing these types of things. And one of the things I find incredibly interesting, and you'll be able to relate to this, you sometimes have projects where they've got, let's say 10 people. And the person who's leading the project is not mindful about what they give to which person. And therefore, things are given to people and it's not based upon their skill set, it's not based upon their interests. And so you find people, they're taking longer to get something done because they're less motivated. They're taking longer to get it done because it's not aligned to their skill set or their propensities. Whereas the same 10 people, this is where it gets really interesting. The same 10 people and the same tasks, right? So nothing's changed. We've got the same stuff to get done. We've got the same people to do it with, but now we do it differently. To the point that G-Dave you made and Heba you made, now we do it using this approach. Now I understand clearly what I've got, and then I know who to give it to. You've not changed the number of people at all, but because they're playing to their strengths, suddenly that team which was struggling and demotivated, they're still doing the same work, and the same team are now 10, 20, 30 times more effective. So there's a key thing here, and in the Vedas, it's such an interesting literature. What's been so inspiring for me over at least the last decade, I'll tell you, at least the last decade, as I've been looking at these books, I'm seeing a common theme about life. And this for me is incredibly exciting. I'm seeing this common theme. People think it's about acquisition and it's about what you have. But what we see, and it's implied in this Sanskrit term, Sambandha Gyan, the real secret of success in practically any area is not the elements themselves. It's actually about the relationship between those elements, right? Just like, for example, I mean, sometimes you have people and they're in a relationship difficulty, but they're both good people, right? But it's whether the relationship between those two people gel very well. So Ricken and I had a friend recently, and Ricken, you'll know who I'm speaking about. And there was someone that he was thinking about, getting into a relationship with. And one of the things I really like about Ricken will tell you honestly what he thinks. If he's got a view, he'll be honest with you. And so we were speaking in this, and I'm talking about Ricken a while back. And he said to me, I told this person, I don't think it will work with you and this person. And he gave a very good reason as to why. Very good, and I thought insightful, because what he was considering is that she's good and he's good. That's not the issue. The issue is, do they work well together? You see? So the principle is the connectivity or the alignment. So often in modern society, what's happened is the modern society, and B.T. Swami sometimes talks about this, there's a subconscious paradigm that the whole world looks out of. We call it, the Cartesian paradigm. So it comes from Descartes, who's a famous philosopher. And his idea is that everything is like a machine. So the world, the universe is like a machine, the body's like a machine. So therefore, if you view the world like a machine and some part is not working, what do you do? If you view the world as a machine and something's not working, what do you do in that paradigm?
You try to fix it.
Yeah, you remove that part, okay? So it's a system, I'm gonna move that bit of the system, I'm gonna move that nut or that bolt and fix it. Now, interestingly enough, the Vedas have a completely different view of reality. They don't deny that there's mechanics, but it talks about the idea of Brahman, okay? The idea that everything is an all-pervading, interconnected series of energies. And therefore, what you do in one area is automatically going to have impact in other areas. And so to this point, when we're speaking about delegation, the same task in relation to one person is inspiring, motivating, and greatly infusing them. And they're going to be likely to do it and do it well. So they're going to get that reward. But the same task in relation to someone else is a drag, it's boring, it's tiresome, and it causes some anxiety because I've never done this before. So it's not that the task is wrong. It's not that the person is wrong. It's the relationship between those. I'm going to encourage you in all areas of your life. Don't just look at the things themselves, but look at the relationship between things. I know so many friends of mine, I'll be honest with you, and they're good people, they're sincere people, they're capable people, but the context is wrong. You see? So in that same capable person, hardworking, inspired, in the wrong context, they just go down. It's the relationship, you see? And the world is full of that. If you look closely, you'll see it again and again and again. The world is full of amazing people in the wrong relationship, in the wrong context, in the wrong resources, and that causes so many problems. So I'm going to encourage you, when you look at something, consider this different lens. Consider this lens. We call this Brahman. There's a Sanskrit verse in the literature called the Bhagavatam. It says, Brahmati Paramatmati Bhagavan iti Shabdyate, that the absolute truth has 3 different phases. The one phase is like this all-pervading energy, how everything is interconnected. Above that is another level. We call this the Paramatma, or the indwelling, the inner guide, sometimes the inner guru, you could say. And then above that is actually in the Vedic understanding, above that is the understanding that the Supreme has his own personal form. It's a very, very deep theology. Now, I saw a couple of hands, and I'm going to just go over, because I'm not sure if those hands were raised while I was speaking or if they were raised after. So, Avni, is there something that you wanted to share? We can't hear you, Avni, but we can't wait to hear you. I think you're just building up the tension by having yourself on, so we were just kind of leaning in.
I'm just eureka, 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 everything is connecting, and I love it, love it, love it. Thank you. So what comes to mind is, in any set, I think is it we are transitioning from expectation to real tasking, real solid, just focused tasking, so that actually that takes away that point of let down, because even in a big corporate team, you're going head on fast with this particular project and you're just expecting people to come along. Well, actually, as you said, if the nut is not working, rather than removing it, and at the moment I'm removing that nut, Rikin would know, is you actually relocate the nut to another part of the machine. So it's for me, it's moving from expectation to just pure tasking, and then the love, that let down doesn't exist anymore. For me, all I want to say is expectation moving to tasking, pure tasking, the correct tasking. Yeah, sorry.
No, not sorry at all. That's a great point. We're very grateful that you shared that. I just want to add to that. So I've been experimenting and I've been looking at what B.T. Swami had done. We've mentioned in previous sessions that B.T. Swami explains, and I think he explains this in this book that you're reading, and also in the leadership book that he wrote before this one. There's 2 books he's written on leadership. He explains that leadership is only 20% technique, and it is 80% relationship. So to your point, building on what you've said, Avni, what we see some, let's say managers doing who are trying to be more effective in this area, is that they'll build a relationship with someone and they'll try to understand what environment does this person need in order for them to be at their best. And we'll have conversations. What do you need to be at your best? What are the things that would cause you to become really frustrated or demotivated? We try and understand, and then we place you. So it's an interesting, subtle thing that we see again in literatures like the Bhagavad Gita. So when Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, because it's a conversation, he talks about 3 categories. And some of you who are from Indian backgrounds, you'll be familiar with the mode of goodness, or sattva, the mode of passion, the category of passion, which is rajas. It's a Sanskrit name for passion, and a category called ignorance, which is called tamas. It's a Sanskrit word. He says of the three, the mode of goodness is the best. And one of the ways, or one of the signs of the mode of goodness is that you do the investment up front before you see the result. Okay, so that's a symptom of this kind of category. So for example, with your point, Avni, I could just give someone a task. And sometimes it's useful to do that. But if I take a mode of goodness approach to giving someone a task, I will have the knowledge first and then the action second. To put simply, think first, act second. So I know the person, and this is the same thing in the sequence I just gave you. I know the task, I know resources are needed, I know how I'm going to monitor. I've done all the thinking first. And after doing all the thinking, then I give it to a person. And because I've paid the price to think first, I'm less likely to have the relationship break down because they're not doing the proper job and they're unhappy with me. I'm likely to have less politics because they're happy with what they're doing. They're not going around complaining that the manager, Ed, he just gives me stuff that he doesn't want to do. I'm not happy here. I'm less likely to lose that person and then have to spend money to advertise for a new person, and then having to spend time to, to interview that person, and then having to spend time to train that person to get on board with the team again. So even though I've done some work, I've paid some price up front, it actually saves me much more time later on. You see? And in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna explains about these categories, he explains that actually the mode of goodness, these are one of the reasons why it's superior, because the mode of goodness it relates to this, what we call maintenance. It allows things to keep going. Whereas the other categories, they may give you something up front, but they cause you much, much more work in the midterm and in the long term. You see? So what we've done in this sequence is we followed that same idea from the Bhagavad Gita. And I've seen it's a pattern for life. I'll be honest with you. It works in literally all areas. Now, let me be very clear. I don't want anyone to be overthinking. If it's unimportant decisions, it doesn't matter. But when we talk about key decisions in life, now, this is something, I'll tell you what I was thinking about recently. And I'll do a seminar on this at some point, not for the leadership group because it's a different topic. I was thinking, when people want to get a job, what do? They spend years studying for their job, right? We invest in our careers, we go to school, we go to college, we go to university, maybe do a master's or a PhD. We invest years for our career. But when it comes to personal relationships, for example, people don't make any investment. We don't invest in ourselves. I don't really get to know the person properly, like what they really want. I just think she looks nice and she thinks I look nice, and therefore we're going to get together. Do you see the irony of it? I will spend years for my career, but the person who's going to be the mother of my children, I won't put any effort into that. And then if it goes badly, I'm shocked. There's something that doesn't make sense. And you know what came to mind when I was thinking about this? I had a vision of this diagram. So what I had was this diagram. It was a series of concentric circles. You're in the center, and then the first concentric circle is your emotional life, right? Because it was based upon something that I read from B.T. Swami. I think it's in his book on relationships, which is called Spiritual Warrior #2. It's available on Amazon. In that book, he says, and I think Ricken has even heard this in a class by him before, he says, the people who are closest to us, they're the people who can help us the most. He says they are also the people who can hurt us the most. That's what inspired the diagram. So I understood, if I'm in the center, the people who are closest to me are the emotional circle. They're the ones who are best placed to either empower me or bring me down because they're closest. And that's why when it comes to personal relationships, we should put the effort in, because you're not just choosing someone to hang out with or a partner, you're actually choosing the people who have access to your heart. Does that make sense? So you get that right, if you get that right, you've created a set of friendships and relationships that can empower you, not just today, but it can empower you for life. And when you're doing well, they amplify your success. When you're doing badly, they minimize every obstacle because they're there to keep supporting you. There's an author, I've mentioned him to you before, because I love his stuff on his critique of modern society. His name is Dr. Gabor Mate, and I was listening to something he said recently. He talked about stress. So he said that he said relationships are so important. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was saying this for decades. He said everything is in sambandha, which means everything is in relationship. So when I heard Gabor Mate say this, I said, yes, that sounds like my teacher. He said, what happens around stress is that, say you're going through a bad day or you're going through a stressful event, and someone who's a friend of yours, someone who likes you, someone who's on your side, they come to you and they say to you, oh, Rikin or Gabrielle, I can see you looked a bit stressed. Is everything okay? They've done studies on this. So whatever stress you're feeling, if someone who's a well-wisher reaches out to you and says, oh, are you okay? What they've done studies, they found immediately all your stress markers go down. Just because someone reached out and showed concern, immediately all your markers of stress, blood pressure, so many other things immediately start to go down because now you feel you're supported. It's not the stress. It's, again, we talked about this, again, it's the idea of relationship. It's the relationship between how much stress you have and how much support you have. Do you see the point? If you've got a great support structure, you can go through high levels of pressure and it won't bring you down. But if your support structure, so if your stress levels are way above your level of support, you're going to definitely have difficulty. So in every area of life, it's a relationship. I promise you, if you start to look at life in this way, you'll see all kinds of incredible things. And I love, Avni, your point. It's about where that person can do their best work. Many companies are losing millions. And I repeat, they're losing millions of pounds and dollars because they've got the square peg in the round hole. They've got a person in their company who actually is a very sincere person and is probably very talented, but they're not talented at the job that they've been given to do. And if you took that same person and put them into another circumstance, and it's not just a role, by the way, it could be another job, so another set of tasks. It could be another type of team, right? A team which are compatible with that person. It could even be that same person under a different manager with a different managerial style, and he or she will do incredibly well. So I want you to think in terms of relationship, right? We often think in terms of things, but the Vedic vision, the vision of these ancient teachings, is it looks at the connection between things, the relationship between things. How many of you have heard of attachment styles in terms of parenting? Who's heard of that before? Avni, I think you're nodding. So Avni, and I know Rikin, you've heard about it as well. So Avni or Rikin, can you just explain what it is? Because it's the same point. What does it mean, attachment styles, in terms of parenting and children? Avni, you're muted if you want to unmute, or Rikin, either of you.
Go ahead, Avni.
And Rikin, go for it.
So I remember attachment styles refers to how we approach a relationship. And so, for example, one type of attachment style will be, for example, dependency.
Yes.
So we have a sense of dependency, and that's what gives us the fulfillment in that relationship.
Yeah.
And then I know there are also like a few others. I'm just trying to think of the other ones.
Okay, I can take it from there. That's fine. So yes, what it's explaining and you can look this up if you're interested in finding out more. There are 4 attachment styles. And basically, to Rikin's point, the way we relate to people in our adult life it's often a lot to do with the way that we were related to by our parents when we were young. You see? And you can predict, actually, how people will be in a relationship based upon the way that their parents related to them when they were young. unless they've consciously worked on their attachment approaches as well. So again, again, if you look carefully, it's the same idea. So the child's there and the parents are there based upon the connection, based upon the relationship that determines other things. If the child has, they call it secure attachment, right? When the child is young, if they're given secure attachment by their parents, that means parents who saw the child for who they were, parents who were there to soothe the child when the child was upset, when the child was crying, then that child becomes the adult with a very strong sense of themselves and a very strong confidence and a very strong self-esteem. In other words, because the parents gave secure attachment to the child when they were young, the child replicates that internally. So they replicate that between their conscious and subconscious mind. There's a secure connection. So they know who they are, they're confident about who they are, and they've got strong self-esteem. And then that child goes out into the world and it's easier for them to handle whatever life throws at them. You see? So again, the same theme. The Vedas, where the Vedas are absolutely unbeatable, is they bring things down to the what's the word I'm looking for? To the active ingredients. You see? Many people will talk about all kinds of techniques, but the Vedas say, look, of all these techniques, this is the essence, right? There's a term called Saragrahi, essence seeker. The Vedas will give you the exact most important and significant ingredient, whereas other people, by speculation, they have to come up with different ideas, and those ideas may have some value, but they're not necessarily the active ingredient. Just like in medicine, you can have a medicine and it's got all these ingredients, but actually there's one active ingredient, and you could literally strip away everything else, just take that one active ingredient and you'd be cured. So it's knowing what's the essential idea. Anyway, what we're going to do is go to this exercise. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to give you, I'll give you, let's say 3 to 4 minutes to write down your answer as you're going through these. Again, please do it intentionally. Define the task, write it down, and it should be so clear that people can't misunderstand what you're asking them to do. Actually, I'm going to add one more thing to this. I made a slight mistake. This number 1 point, define the task. I'll add, define the task and the why. So this is what I need to get done, and this is why I need it to get done. Because you talked about this last week. People should know why it's important. Yep. So number 1, define the task and the why. And then number 2, number 3, number 4. We'll give you another 3 minutes to write this down, and then we will go from there. Ricken, you raised your hand. Did you want to ask anything?
I was just wanting to make a point on something earlier, but we can come back to it later.
Oh, okay. No problem.
Yeah, as well, Ed, because a lot of things came to my mind, I just wanted to highlight, if you will have a few minutes at the end. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. So after this task, we'll definitely get into that conversation. We want to take everything that BT Swami is saying and start to make it into practical steps. Okay, so we've heard what he said, and he does this, he's lived this, I've seen him. Now we're going to use it for our own area of consideration. Define the task and the why. Define how you're going to monitor the task. Is it observation? Is it one-to-one conversations? Is it team meetings? Is it email? Is it a phone call? How are you going to monitor the task, and what's the frequency? Number 3, what resources are needed? Sometimes for someone to do a task, they need to be in certain meetings. For someone else to do a task, they need authority. If you want me to run the team meeting, you should tell the team that I'm going to run the meeting. Otherwise, they'll think, why should we listen to you? So really think that through. What resources are needed for that task to get done? You know, I want to give an example. Ricken and a few others, we are working together to get some of these books by BT Swami as audiobooks. And one of the things that I saw Ricken do brilliantly, when he and the rest of the team were reaching out to some of the people who were going to do the recording, they made it a point where necessary to help those people to get the resources, that the recording equipment necessary to get that done, that task done. Otherwise, it'll be very nice. Yes, I'm going to do the recording, but they don't have the equipment, or they don't know where to get the equipment, or they get equipment that's not the right quality, and therefore then they get the equipment, it's the wrong quality. They spend all the time making this audio recording, and then at the end we have to say to them, no, this isn't good enough, we can't use this. You see, because we haven't thought this through. So task number one, so action number one, number two, number three, and then once we've done these 3 steps, now it's the who. Who do I give? How do I empower them? So we're considering ability, and we're also considering propensity. Actually, I'm going to build on that. Ability, propensity, and capacity. While you're doing that, I'm just going to write on the slide. And when you're ready, I'm going to ask you just to let me know, and then we can take it a step on. So what you can do is you can use like a thumbs up or a hands up once you've completed the task, just so I know who's completed and who still needs a bit more time. Okay, I can see Rasa and Mohit, they've completed the task. Fantastic, thank you for that. I can see that some others are still writing, that's absolutely fine, no pressure. Okay, Gabrielle, thank you for the thumbs up. I can see you've completed the task. Okay, G-Day, thank you for that. I can see you've completed. Avni, I can see you're done. Okay, Heba, you're done as well. Excellent. Christina, how are you? Okay, you good? Okay, excellent. What I'm going to ask you to do now, I'm going to stop the screen and the slideshow, and I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. Again, I want you to share your plan with a peer in the breakout room. So we'll do this in groups of 2 or 3. So we're just going to put you in randomly and just get some peer-to-peer feedback. Okay, so go through your plan. This is how I framed it. Make sure it's clear, and and when you hear from your partner, if you hear that what they've defined is not clear, you're going to give them that feedback. I don't quite understand what the task is. Maybe you need to tweak this, and the why. And then all those different stages as well. Okay, so this is what I'm going to give. This is who I'm going to give it to. This is what I think that they'll need, etc. When you hear the plan, critique or give them feedback, obviously respectful and constructive. If there's something that you think that they could do to make it more effective, speak up. Okay, we want to get better by learning from each other. And it's always good to get another fresh pair of eyes, isn't it? Because there's something that we have a blind spot. We may miss something in how we've set something up, and someone who's new, they can come look at it and think, you know what? I think you've missed this. Oh, right, I didn't see that. Okay, so okay, Ricken, do you want to start the, because I'm no longer a host, so do you want to start the breakout rooms? Oh, okay, I think Ricken's given host rights to Mohit. Maybe there's a connection issue on Ricken's side. So Mohit.
Yeah, sorry. One side, actually, my computer actually just died.
Oh, okay, no worries.
I know I made Mohit the co-host. I was wondering if.
Yeah, Mohit, can you make me also? If you make me a co-host as well, then I can create the breakout rooms, and then we can start the activity. So what you will do is if you go to participants, and then you go to my name, and then at the end, okay, perfect, you've done it. Okay, thank you very much. So what I'll do is I'll just set that up again. So give me 1 second. Okay, good. So you'll be in groups of 2 or 3. I'm going to give you, we'll give you about 10 minutes because I want you to have a robust conversation. Just share your plan and get feedback. Okay, let's start the breakout room for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, I'll bring you back into the main room. Let's start now. Oh, Mohit, you're not in you're not in any of the groups, are you? Okay, I'm not sure what happened there because it seems.
I think we might be co-hosts. That's why.
Yes. But okay, then you can actually go into any of the rooms that you choose.
Oh, okay.
If you click on breakout rooms and then click on join for any of the rooms that you choose, because you're a host, so you have the controls like that.
Okay, very well. I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no. Okay, yeah.
Sure. Anyway.
What?
Nothing.
Now this is this one, right?
I need more time.
You said that? Which is it's fair comment. Who said that? Oh, Avni.
Yeah, Avni from Kenya.
Absolutely. First of all, we gave you only a short period to do that. What we try to do in these sessions is give you a starter for 10, like a taster, but then to expand on it more, we've got limited time together, but we do want you to, and we also want to encourage you, feel free to reach out to each other and say, look, I know we did this exercise together. Do you have some time? Anytime within the next week so we can continue the conversation. Was it you? First of all, how did you find the activity? What are your reflections? And I know that Heba, you had something you wanted to share, and Rikin, you had a comment that you wanted to share as well. So we want to give some time for that before we end.
It was good because it just kind of pushed us to get very detailed and as specific as possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Rikin, I'm going to follow up with you. What was the value of being specific? Because we're talking about delegation skills. What was the value of being very specific about what we're doing?
It brought the clarity what you need to do. I'm sorry for jumping in.
No, go ahead.
It just for me brought the clarity of what actually I need to do. That's it. I just like it. And exchanging, even get another ideas, and suddenly I have from the point which was an aching part a lot of ideas how I can tackle it. So it's like yeah.
Excellent. I find that really inspiring when you're generating best practices and solutions just by hearing what your peers are doing. Thank you for that, Christina. Anyone else have a comment before? Otherwise, we'll go to Heba, because I know, Heba, there's something you wanted to share as well.
No, it was just a few notes that came to my mind, and they are very important. Some of them, I tried them. The stress and support you were mentioning, in parenting, they use it. Sometimes when they have a child and they say to the child directly, I feel you're tired, or I feel you're angry. And this, the reaction goes really very, very well. This is one. Two, you mentioned something very important.
Can I just say something to that? Because I want to hear your second one, but this is so important what you've shared. That's actually, this is an aside. What's happened in modern society is most people, they don't know how to parent very well, and it's not their fault. Because what would happen traditionally is you'd pick it up from the elders who got it culturally. But Heba, what you've just said is incredibly important. When you do that for a child, when the child's got some emotion, a negative one especially, and that emotion is acknowledged by the parents, that child will grow up to be the adult who can acknowledge their own emotions and move through even negative emotions. So I just wanted to echo that because it's very, very powerful. Thank you for that.
Yes. And I see the result on these kids, how they are and how they are growing up. It's amazing. I didn't believe in it till I experienced it and see it. Second point is the support system. If we know who is our support system, I did it already, it's very, very helpful.
Yes.
And we know how to rely and to what degree it was emotional or. And the third point that I wanted just to check, what we delegate usually. We delegate the things that either we don't like to do or we're not good at. And this is very important when you're delegating, to know that this person you were delegating, he's good at it or he likes to do it. So just I wanted to share you 3 points. They came to my mind while you were speaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you so much. These are all very powerful. And I think you can all feel just this discussion, it can revolutionize how we delegate. You know, many businesses, projects, they're not successful, and it's for want of the subtle things. In the modern society, what's made out is that the more gross something is, the more powerful, but it's not true. According to the Vedic knowledge, the more subtle something is, the more powerful it is. You see, the more refined it is. So like things like relationship, it's very subtle. It's not gross. It's not like just cash, or it's like the subtle things make a big difference. I saw Mohit, you had a comment.
Yes. So I just wanted to make a point regarding delegation, right? This is what we're talking about. And so certainly we can look at it from, what I don't want to do or what I do want to do. But I found it that delegation has a negative connotation to the people that are delegating. And then sometimes when we talk about the topic itself, I find it as leaders, actually, that's the primary job.
Yes.
So if we spent, the next 5 months on delegation, I don't think it could be enough because I'm kidding, obviously, but so delegation is what a leader is. Your ability to, and all the points that you're highlighting, Ed, are so important for us to be able to master if we want to reach our potential as leaders, because the better delegator you are, and it starts with a mindset of, hey, delegation is the job.
Good thing.
It's a good thing, right? And so that's the point I wanted to make.
Wonderful. And one of the things we'll look at maybe next week, B.T. Swami, he gives a list of 10 principles of empowered leadership. And one of them, he actually mentions in their delegation. But also what he does is he talks about delegation in terms of engagement and empowerment. So delegation, if I give someone, and I love the point that was made earlier, if I give someone something that's going to help them to grow, they can do well, and they're inspired by, I've just engaged them in something that's completely meaningful and positive. And much of modern society is suffering because people don't have meaningful engagement. The crisis that we're seeing on the planet, and B.T. Swami also says this in the Leadership 2 book, is actually a crisis of leadership. Because the leadership doesn't know what it's doing, therefore everyone else has some difficulties, Anyway, thank you for that. I really appreciate that point, Mohit. Any last closing comments? I know we're almost at time, so any last comment? Rasa, yes, please.
Just a really quick comment is on my team, I forgot what the name of this exercise is, but you guys can look it up. But to start on the leadership or on the delegation path, and in terms of even coming to that base of knowledge of understanding the tasks and doing all your homework before you delegate, there's this great exercise where you do this yourself first. Is you ask yourself, what am I doing right now? You assign a time, like a percentage of your time that you spend there. And then you go back and you look at what your ideal time should be spent on each of the tasks that you're doing. And there you can see where you're spending too much time on, where you need to reduce. That's an ideal area to look into delegation. Then there's the second part that you look at is, what should I not be doing? And that's another opportunity for delegation. And then finally, what would I like to do more of, or what would I like to do that I'm not doing? And then you look at that, and then you can go back and again, look at what else you could delegate to make more time for what you would like to do more of. And then if you use that same exercise with your team, which each team member goes through this exact same exercise, then you can really understand the skill sets, the motivation, the opportunities for delegation, the opportunities for growth, and match it up with what you yourself have written down in terms of what those delegation opportunities are. I found that to be really powerful exercise. It worked every time, and just wanted to close with that.
Thank you so much. Really useful. Thank you.
See, Ed, she took what I said and made it better. That's what she did.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with that. And Ricken, did you want to share something? Was there something you were going to say?
Yeah, just point that you made in one of the big points you made today on kind of understanding relation and connectivity between things. I feel, and you brought up obviously the point that the situation that we had been discussing, and I was just thinking that it's many times easier to see connectivity and relations in reference to others, and sometimes more difficult to see it within, like, for ourselves, relation and connectivity. And so I was just thinking to myself, because again, to your point on investing into relationships, and we may have, you know, mentors for careers, but, you know, something I was thinking about, do we have people who can guide us specifically in this area of helping us understand relation and connectivity for ourselves to the, you know, to the outside world? And I was just wanting to kind of encourage this for all of us, is to, you know, in this specific area of understanding ourselves into relation and connectivity, for us to also try to seek out that guidance as well.
Interesting you said that. I'm just going to share one thing. So Rick, I was in New York recently, and I was telling Ricken that I was recording for a TED Talk. And so what I realized, and this was the theme, it's changed now because I've got a different theme, but the original theme of the TED Talk was about compatibility. And this is what I was sharing with you. I've seen it. There's a huge need to shift our paradigm. Everyone's thinking in terms of things. They're not looking at the relationship between the things. But that's where all the magic is. That's where all the success is. You can see if people are successful, it's because they've got a good relationship between their talents and their career, right? If they've got a good marriage, it's because there's a good relationship between that you know, the marriage partners. It's the relationship between things where the magic happens. The success is generated by the type of relationship and the quality of the relationship. It's not the things themselves. That's why you can go to some Indian villages and the people there, they've got very, very little by way of material resources, but they're much happier than many people in the West, because it's the relationship they have between themselves and between their family members, their community, the planet. That's where, and also in many cases, their spiritual relationship, the quality of their relationship with the Supreme. That's where they're getting the magic from. The principle plays out in every area of life. I'm telling you, it's crazy. Anyway, we'll have to talk more about that another time. But I'm conscious of that we're almost at time. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys. There's so much more to share with you. I actually have another few exercises, but as usual, we don't have the time for it. But we'll save it till next week. I'll add two last points. One principle of delegation that we didn't touch on, that some high-performing managers do, is they'll give a series of tasks and they'll tell the team, which one would you like to do, right? Now, that works better when the team is sufficiently mature, right? If they're not so mature, they may take something on and they can't do it, then you have other issues. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. And then we also have some managers, and B.T. Swami mentions this in that page section, that page 62 to 72, I think it was, when he's talking about delegation, he talks about delegation in a matrix. Now, one of the meanings of that is that sometimes if you have a very good team structure, as managers, you can delegate tasks to another leader in the team, and then the leader in the team can further delegate to other people. So there's also secondary and tertiary delegation. You see, now this is a bit groundbreaking, but I just had this realization. You sometimes have people who are expert at delegation. So sometimes great CEOs of companies, they'll delegate the task to an expert delegator in their team. And then that person will run through the exercise that we did, because he's so clued up or she's so clued up on who's in the team, and they know how to delegate, who to delegate, and what support. So even as the head of a company, it's not that all the delegation has to be done by you, but you just have to make sure that the end results are done and it's done in a cultured way. Does that make some sense? So just giving you some other innovative ideas that you can consider. Anyway, I know we're at time. great to see all of you. Have a great weekend. I'm so excited about not just this group, but about all some of the things that we're going to be sharing with you in the future. And we look forward to seeing you at the next session. Okay, I hope this was useful, and look forward to connecting with you again. And if anyone has any questions in the meantime, feel free to message me or via Ricken or get my number, whatever works. But very, very grateful and very honored to be able to be of service to all of you. I really mean that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So much. Grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.